If you were to be, young person today, how would, you guide yourself?
I would probably say to myself, take more risk. Don't be concerned about failing. In fact, embrace it. Mistakes are probably the best way to learn, particularly in the world of innovation.
Hi, welcome to Tetr Talks. Today we have with us Dr. Andrew MacDonald, who's a successful entrepreneur and professor. In a career spanning over 4 decades, he has now been teaching for more than 26 years. He has taught at many renowned business schools, the likes of Columbia Business School, University of Adelaide, Duke Corporate Education, and more. He teaches subjects at the intersection of technology and human creativity, exploring topics such as digital leadership, tech innovation and disruption, design thinking, customer experience, and high-impact global banking programs. Good morning, Professor Andrew MacDonald. We're so happy that you could join us today. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We want to start with just first asking you about your prolific career of over 4 decades. You've done multiple things and you've traveled across multiple countries and, of course, a lot of experience there. But for you personally, what have been the most fulfilling moments and projects that, you've had a chance to be a part of?
Yeah, great question. It's an interesting career to reflect on, and it's been a career of privilege. I still wake up every day and feel privileged to do what I do. And I reflect back on the journey, and it's been a combination of entrepreneurship, working at executive level in corporates, and then bridging over into academia and the world of executive education. And if I reflect back on the journey, there's probably a couple of highlights that come to mind. The first, which was just a few years ago when I worked in Oman on a program that was created by the Omani government as they've created their new vision to transform their economy and society. And it involves the development of aspiring entrepreneurs and seasoned executives to expose them to a whole range of new concepts and ideas around AI, digital transformation, innovation, leadership, change management, all of these sorts of things. And I had the privilege of working with 240 people over a month on innovation and exposing them to new concepts and new ideas around design thinking, human-centered design, as well as digital. But what was really great from my perspective was that the students brought a really open mind and they participated and actually helped me learn on my journey as well. And we were able to make a very significant impact to a number of lives and we believe to create some significant momentum in the Omani economy as well. Going further back, I spent a few years at EY and in a business development role, and had the opportunity to work on a project in Japan as well as Australia. And that was one of my very first exposures to working internationally and gave me a profound understanding of what you have to do to be successful globally by adapting to different cultures, different societies, different ways of doing business, different mindsets, and left me with an inquisitiveness around learning more about how to do that on a global scale.
Wonderful. And obviously it took a lot of different kind of turns and lots of different experiences to get you to this point. But if you have to also reflect back, when you were young, if you were to give an advice to your younger self, what would that advice be? Would you do something differently? And especially if you put yourself in the context of today, when the world is changing so fast, it's so dependent on technology. If you were to be, young person today, how would, you guide yourself?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think reflecting back, I would probably say to myself, take more risk. Don't be concerned about failing. In fact, embrace it. Mistakes are probably the best way to learn, particularly in the world of innovation. Obviously, take risks that are not betting everything on that one opportunity, but take risks that are small and learn from them and scale from there. But be resilient around those risks. So learn from them, but you have to accept that there will be failure along the way, but that's a great opportunity to then move backwards, learn, and then continue the momentum. So I would probably advise myself to take more risk, be resilient, but be incredibly open to new ideas as well.
Got it. In fact, learning and unlearning and relearning is a huge part of even teaching today, considering that, and you teach AI and technology-related subjects, and the pace of technology changes so fast. It's increasing and changing at such a breakneck speed. It must be a challenge also teaching these subjects to students because the course curriculum would keep changing and you would need to introduce new concepts. So how do you stay updated personally, and how do you even approach creating your own course content? What YouTube channels are you watching? What are you reading?
it is a really dynamic and fluid environment. You can't just turn up with a set of slides that you've developed 6 or 12 months ago. And in fact, many of the participants or students on the programs give me insights into what they're watching, because they're watching different programs. They've got different content they're accessing, and I learn from them as well. But fundamentally, what drives me around content is a little bit different to the way that most academics go around designing programs. I am running consulting projects all the time as well. So what I tend to do is incorporate the learnings from the projects that I'm running into my content. So rather than talking about a case study of Amazon, which has its merits, I'll more likely be talking about a case study of an actual project that I'm delivering or transforming with a client right now. So it's in real time, and that way we get to discuss the challenges, the opportunities, and go through some of the ways in which leadership is responding, but also then adapting to what is it that we're seeing as we're transforming organizations, and what is the research telling us that supports that. So coming back to your question, I'm a very visual learner. So I prefer watching content, either listening to it or reading it. So I will look at a lot of YouTube channels and get bite-sized information from Lex Friedman, or watching the latest insights from McKinsey or Forrester or Gartner, watching conference speakers and keynotes that are the search terms I'll put in are 2024, so that it's today, so that I'm actually hearing what the keynote speakers are talking about at conferences, and then marrying that up with the content that I'm designing. But the content is always designed from the perspective of the learner experience. I never think about it in terms of the content that I have to go through. It's much more about what experience does the participant need or the student need, and how is that experience going to help them learn to actually have real world application immediately.
No, that's fascinating, and I'm almost jealous of your students at this point because they get the hands-on kind of information from real life case studies, and also you're right, just being in touch with the insights coming from the best in the world could be a game changer. What recommendations would you have for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs who are your students? As an entrepreneur, do you think that your learning needs for technology need to be a little different than if you're getting into a job? Are there any tools or technologies that you need to be well versed with as a young entrepreneur starting up right after college?
It's an interesting question to reflect on, because every entrepreneurial journey is different. And as soon as we start to try and template the way in which we go about these things, we run into all sorts of barriers. But there are some key things that we need to be cognizant of as we move through the entrepreneurial journey. One is, from our perspective, because we fundamentally believe in the intersection between humanity and technology. So we don't look at things through a technology lens. We look at things from a humanistic perspective, and then that drives technology outcomes. So what we always talk about on our journey with entrepreneurs is to say to them, always begin with your customer in mind and with humanity in mind. So what is the user experience? What's the customer experience? What's the employee experience? And when you combine that, what's the total experience that's going to differentiate your product, your solutions, your business, so that you can actually really create and capture value as you move through that journey? But also what we talk about is fundamentally something where we believe that as you go through your entrepreneurial journey, whatever you create, that solution, that product, that business should leave the planet and humanity in a better place than what you found it. So those two things really drive our approach.
That's wonderful. In fact, I want to dive a little bit more deeper into the questions around AI and ethics. But before we do that, one quick question. What would be your most bold prediction for the next 5 years when it comes to AI? The boldest prediction.
The boldest prediction around AI. I think I'd never like looking at a crystal ball, because these things tend to fall apart. I guess that the boldest prediction that I have is that one of the most underutilized parts of AI has been in predictive analytics, in predictive maintenance. So we fundamentally believe there'll be an explosion of opportunities in predictive maintenance, and I'm actually sitting on an advisory board of a company that's doing that right now. So we see an incredible opportunity there that's been largely missed.
Got it. So coming back to the question of, humans, AI, ethics, and it's probably the most popular question of our times. But AI is a powerful tool for business, and of course it comes with its ethical dilemma. Can you share with us maybe a situation or a case study or an example where the business model and AI and ethics itself could be in a conflict, and how does a young entrepreneur or any entrepreneur solve or navigate this kind of a challenge?
I think it's probably best illustrated with an example. We worked with an organisation that was heavily into recruitment, and they had started a process of screening applicants, their CVs or resumes, if you like, based on obviously the words that we used, but also they asked for photographs and so on of the individuals as well. But that brought out an inherent bias in the way in which they were screening. So what we would sort of counsel is that you have to move through developing these sorts of applications, these sorts of concepts and ideas by actually referring back to what it is that you're ethically trying to achieve as well. So in those outcomes, we were seeing candidates screened out purely because of demographics. It didn't match what was sitting there as a data set. So what we would always advise is to really test the data set at the beginning, really make sure that there's not inherent bias built in. Always go back and test and audit the results and see what you're screening for, and then use that information to always have your process and your system adapting to different circumstances, because there's usually inherent biases built into these sorts of things.
Do you think these biases and questions can be solved, or do you think there are also industries where AI should not be used? Like my question was going to be, name 3 industries where you think AI should not be used at all?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. The first one that comes to mind, I was reflecting on this just the other day. There was a movie that is well before your time called War Games in the 1980s. And it was fundamentally about a hacker who hacked into the US defense system, and he thought he was playing a computer game, when in actual fact he had hacked into the central artificial intelligence of the US defense network. So I don't think AI should be able to be used in some defense applications. It has some applications around things like predictive maintenance that I talked before, but allowing machines to decide on when to fire nuclear missiles and that, I don't think is a particularly good idea. I think whilst AI has a huge role to play in the legal industry, it has to have human oversight, because there are all sorts of nuances within the law that are best interpreted by humans rather than being interpreted purely by AI. Similarly, and just reflecting on a journey that a friend of mine had recently, who was diagnosed with having a heart attack while he was actually sitting in the emergency room. His detection was very quick with the use of AI, but it then required the empathy that comes with a very good specialist or surgeon to sit next to him and say, in 10 minutes time, 15 minutes time, you're going to be operated on. So I think there's some constraints there as well.
There is this, whether you agree with this or not, people say that there's this question, will AI replace? And then the opinion is that people using AI will not be replaced. However, people not using AI will be replaced by AI. What's your take on that?
Well, there's little doubt that AI will replace a number of jobs and a number of functions, particularly things around back office functions, things that are more rudimentary that you can develop for. But I think there are as many jobs that will be lost. There'll be new jobs that are created. So I'm one of these people that fundamentally believe that net there'll be new jobs created as opposed to more jobs lost.
So then what kind of skills should young people hone to be able to get to some of these new jobs that would be created?
So obviously they very much need the fundamentals in machine learning and AI. So, code, understanding code using Python or R, these sorts of things become really important. Data visualization, data literacy more broadly actually. Is something that they should concentrate on. Data visualization is a particularly good example. We're using Tableau and other tools as well. But beyond that, I also subscribe to the view that as we're facing into some of the most complex problems we've ever witnessed globally, we need a convergence of creative and critical thinking. So if you're somebody who comes from a very tech background sort of environment, I would encourage you strongly to do the very best to learn about creativity. And the opposite holds true as well. So courses like human-centered design thinking, systems thinking, all of those sorts of things become really super important to the journey.
All right, some quick questions around AI that we'd love for you to answer. The first one is, name an AI tech that's underhyped but has the potential to be revolutionary.
Going back to what I was saying before, predictive maintenance, which is effectively the use of AI and ML to predict the maintenance requirements of plant and machinery and equipment and so on. And we're seeing that one as being very underutilized and talked about. Currently, I have a friend who's developed a startup from 2017, and he developed predictive maintenance capabilities for the oil and gas industry. But my role was to mentor him around early stage entrepreneurship as opposed to the tech. He's got that covered. And what we found through the conversations that I had with him, but also in his own journey, was that his technology had a much broader application, particularly in the defense industry as well, and also in different geographies. So now most of his revenue will come from overseas. So it will come from the US and the UK and into Europe as well.
Very interesting. This is a boom and bust question. I'm going to name a few roles in AI and a few sectors in AI, and you're going to tell whether they're going to go boom or bust in the next couple of years. So the first one is AI in customer service.
Boom.
AI in marketing.
Boom.
AI in healthcare.
Boom.
AI in supply chain management.
Boom, but a more mature boom.
All right. What about personalized learning?
Personalized learning, boom, but it's there's a long way to go in this space, but there are aspects of it that are quite mature.
All right. AI in cybersecurity.
Boom.
AI in quantum computing in business.
I don't think we've even started, so that has to be a hyper boom. Yeah.
All right. AI in virtual reality for training, personal training.
Yeah, I think we're sort of mapping that out about 2027 to start booming from there. Yeah.
Got it. Environmental monitoring.
Yeah, huge. Boom.
All right. And digital transformation.
Boom, but more mature.
All right, got it. This one is called Is It AI? Since we have, the professor of AI with us, we thought might as well do a litmus test to see how far AI has come, and if he himself can tell whether an image is AI generated or if it's real. Are you ready for this challenge, Professor?
Almost. I just need my glasses for this one.
Absolutely. All right, let's go for the first one.
Yes, that is AI generated.
Correct, that is AI generated. What about this one?
No, it's not AI generated.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. What about this one?
Yes, that is AI generated.
All right. And that is correct. It is AI generated. You're getting all of these right. All right, this one probably may be hard. What about this one?
Oh, that's a sunflower. I would say no to that one.
Oh. It is AI generated. All right. 3 correct so far. What about this one?
That one would be no.
All right, let's see. No, correct. This is a real image. What about this one?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say yes to that one.
It's an AI generated image? Okay, let's see. No, it's a real image. Okay, what about this one?
I'd like to think that it was real, so I'll say yes. Beautiful image.
No, it's a real image. Why did you think this was AI generated?
I just felt that the landscape with the solitary tree just didn't look quite right.
Right. The second last one.
That's AI generated. Yeah.
That was a quick one.
Yeah.
Correct. It is AI generated. And this one is probably the trickiest. What do you think?
Well, it's either 2 dogs or it's a very strange dog. I'm going to go with it. I'd say it's AI generated.
All right, let's see.
It's coin flip.
It is AI generated. That's great. You got most of them right. How do you see some of these roles shaping up with AI? Just your comment on each of them. How would copywriting change?
I think that'll be fundamentally changed forever by not only AI but blockchain as well. I think a lot of copywriting will be automated.
Amazing. Designing?
Designing is a cool spot. I think that's where's the convergence of critical and creative thinking coming together. So I think that's going to be a really interesting space.
All right. Coding?
Coding, I think there's much more to be done in the world of coding. You look at something like natural language processing, NLP, we need much more sophisticated language models. So I think there's really exciting times ahead.
What about recruiting?
Recruiting, Not so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about roles which are related to people management, like a team manager?
I think it'll be augmented. I think, any roles where we're leading, coaching, managing, or mentoring people are still going to require that humanity as well as the technology coming together.
Would you say the same thing for project management?
Project management, a lot of it will be automated, but a lot of it also still requires feet on the ground, eyes on the ground as well.
All right. What about a portfolio management?
So coming to the industry where I do a lot of work in financial services, portfolio management is an interesting one. In the mass affluent space, so the retail space of banking, the mass affluent space, there's definitely room for it. And Vanguard has proven that at scale. As you move up the more sophisticated aspects of financial services, it's going to be definitely the convergence of humanity and technology.
Got it. This one's typically thought of as very people-centric, but what do you think about sales roles?
Sales roles depends on whether you're selling a transaction or a relationship. If you're selling a transaction, then absolutely. But if you're selling a relationship, then obviously the human dimension will come to the fore.
That's an excellent answer. Coming to, again, back to remember what we were discussing around ethics and how the AI space is evolving. It's very interesting, but so far it seems that a few players who have large language models are the ones that are winning in this space. So whether it's OpenAI or Google, they already have their models out there that people are using. Do you think there is an opportunity for other people to also introduce their language models? And would that provide any additional opportunity to new age entrepreneurs? Also, do you think that it is needed or something that should be there for a fair game? Because considering the power that AI holds, what does it mean for a very few organizations to have control or essentially own these large language models?
I think throughout history, if you go back over generations, and quite often, whether it's a new technology, a new resource find, or whatever the case may be, you have a critical few that have either a monopoly or an oligopoly over the structure of an industry. And I don't think there's anything necessarily to be worried about that, as long as the regulatory environment supports competition and access to technology. Then for a lot of young entrepreneurs, I think you should never be frightened by the fact that there's one or two dominant players, because even though they're the dominant players in an industry, there's always room for others to develop. Look at the world of e-commerce. Amazon dominates that space, but there's thousands of e-commerce companies out there doing really well, and they're providing new tools, new insights for customers, new ways of shipping, and new ways of managing logistics. So I would never be frightened by one or two big players, but what I would be doing is seeing how much I can learn from them, and maybe also seeing how I can work and collaborate with them.
Got it. What you also mentioned right now is more of a mindset for an entrepreneur in a world that's dominated by AI. Any other traits that you think will define a successful entrepreneur in an AI kind of world?
Well, obviously having a really curious and open mind about not just technology, but trends. Particularly, one of the things that entrepreneurs quite often forget is who is it that's ultimately going to buy their product? Who's going to purchase that product? So begin with the consumer in mind, or the customer or the client in mind, and then design for that and build for that. So what I would strongly encourage them to do is to not compete on value, but to compete on experience. And we talk about this in our programs all the time. If you compete on value, then you're in the differentiation game by talking about features and benefits of your product. If you're in the experience game, then you have an ability to make a profound impact on that customer or consumer at multiple points during their journey with you. So I would encourage them as much as possible to understand and stay on top of tech, but always come back to the creative aspects of designing great experiences.
So in our next segment, Professor Andrew, really want to touch upon you as a teacher. Of course, you've had a profound impact on the lives of the students that you teach and their careers. Would love to know how your own experience at Columbia and the University of Adelaide has had on your teaching approach and methodologies. If you could just share, some of your own experiences that have shaped your way of teaching.
Yeah, so there's been lots of different opportunities to teach for business schools around the world. But turning to Columbia, I was a visiting professor for Columbia, teaching on their global banking program, which was fantastic because it had, I think, around 68 participants from more than 25 countries. And the parts that I taught were predominantly around marketing and the customer experience. And that really shaped my thinking around what is out there and what is possible, because we had people working on payment systems in Colombia as well as customer experiences in India. And so very diverse group a very senior group who worked through a 9-month journey. And Columbia University's global banking program is universally recognised as one of the best that's out there for that industry. But what was really powerful about it was not just the interaction between myself and the students, but the collaboration between the students as well. And I think we should always be mindful of the fact that when we create these experiences as learners and academics, that we should always have the opportunity for the cohorts to go like this, because they learn a tremendous amount from one another as well. University of Adelaide, I spent a period of time as a director of the International Centre of Financial Services, and I taught on some of their open executive education programs as well. But what was really interesting on that journey was looking at a university that is ranked extremely highly in Australia, but some of the courses that they had weren't necessarily keeping pace with what students were asking for. So for courses around digital and crypto, some of the things we've talked about today, fintech, for example, was something that wasn't taught but needed to be taught. But they had the capabilities, but they just hadn't put it together. So what's great is being on the inside of the business school like Adelaide and actually seeing it from the student's perspective around, can you please design these courses, because this is what employers are looking for when we come out.
Any particular story of a student who built something that was groundbreaking or very interesting for you personally, if you could share something?
Yeah, so a student that I worked with a number of years ago, and obviously for confidentiality reasons, I'll keep it, I won't name the individual, but he came to one of my programs in London a number of years ago in the financial services industry. And the program was essentially about how to become the highest performer in that industry when you're facing clients, particularly in that part of the industry, which is wealth management. And he went on to a journey of incredible sustained high performance across 3 different organizations. But realizing that he had the entrepreneurial spirit within him, he got to a point when he realized he needed to back his own journey. And he did that and established his own family office in London, and has now scaled that in a way where he is now considered as a conduit for accessing some of the most interesting deals that are available in the United Kingdom. And he's an inspiration to me, because he's done it with a huge amount of humility, but he has a thirst for learning, but also a great entrepreneurial spirit that carries him forward.
From his story and your own, do you think that the city that you live in and where you establish your business or where you move, does that have a role to play in shaping you or in your success in some way?
I think it certainly does. I think obviously where we live, the experience we have, the network that we can draw upon, which is incredibly important, defines us in many ways. But it's our ability to look beyond where we grew up or where we live and always reach out and learn from visiting different countries, different cultures, that really start to help us explore a whole range of new and different possibilities.
Well said. All right, in our next segment, we want to ask you some questions about crypto and blockchain, just your thoughts and your comments on some of these things. So how do you think crypto and blockchain is going to disrupt business models for entrepreneurs and young businesses?
I think in many ways we're still yet to see the best of both technologies. I think crypto in particular has been belted from pillar to post, and it's actually had all sorts of issues in the public domain with scandals and scams and so on and so forth. But at its core is a really, really interesting technology that will profoundly transform industries like financial services, but it also needs to come with the right scale and pace of regulation to give more confidence back into the public domain. Blockchain, I think we've started seeing it in things like supply chain and legal services and so on, but it's got a long way to go, and I think it's not necessarily well understood yet. We have to remember that somewhere around 90% of organizations today are talking about the need to innovate using technologies like AI, ML, crypto, and blockchain. But only 3% of organizations are actually ready to do that work. So that also tells us that it's not just about the technology, it's about the readiness of organizations to embrace these challenges and technologies.
Got it. Do you think that there is still some transformation and some technologies that we're yet to see at the cusp of AI and crypto together? What's the potential there?
I don't know. I'm probably a learner in this space. I'm really not really sure of the convergence between the two and where that will go. I probably wouldn't want to make any predictions in that space.
Got it. And for blockchain and crypto, do you think it's living up to the hype so far?
I think it's unrealistic hype. You know, if you look at Gartner's hype cycle and you go and hype curve and you go through that, I think we've set unrealistic expectations for the technologies. But has it lived up to it? Probably not. But that's probably because I think the hype was overextended into what it could achieve in a short period of time. And I don't think it's about the technology being wrong. It's about the readiness of us to actually utilize that technology.
All right. Next segment is on travel. We want to know from you, Professor Andrew, if your personal travel and work travel has had any profound impact on how you view things, your personal experiences and your perspectives. So any examples of maybe travel experiences that you feel like were a turning point in your life or brought about some kind of change?
I would encourage anybody on any journey of entrepreneurship or learning to travel as much as they possibly can. And if there's financial constraints around that, then travel within your own country and the countries that are nearest to you. Because even within your own country, there's a diversity of experiences to be had. But for me, it's shaped me as a person in terms of my openness to learn from different cultures, and also has made me realize the inherent biases that are out there that people have about different places, different religions, different ways of organizing yourself in business and so on. And that gives me an incredible ability to be open, not to be naive, but to be open around what is out there and embrace new learning. But I find that the only way to truly understand a culture and a different way of doing things is to immerse yourself in those regions and those countries.
Is there any particular travel experience when you look back to, you think that was, really put you out of your comfort zone and, pushed you to grow? It could be like a country or a city or a project or an assignment, something that you were visiting. Can you, maybe tell us where that was and how that was?
It's an interesting reflection, and I was thinking about this because there's been so many, and it's been over such a long period of time. It sounds a bit funny, but I grew up in Glasgow in Scotland in the 1970s, in quite a poor part of Glasgow. And it wasn't until I returned to Scotland that I realised just what an impact that country and the people of Scotland had on me as a child. And reconnecting with Scotland has had a profound impact on my mindset around impact, particularly impact investing and sustainability, but also looking at a country from the perspective of its beauty, but also its potential, and trying to get the balance right. So probably going home to Scotland.
That's a beautiful answer. So you know that our students are going to be traveling across different countries and learning and building businesses as they do that. We want to ask you if there's one piece of advice that you would share with them so that they could maximize their learning during their travel assignment.
Get out of the classroom, get out of your hotel. Right, so once the classroom's finished and you have the opportunity to go and do your assignments and do your work with one of your colleagues or your participants, go out, visit the markets, go to local restaurants, talk to the local people, go out and see that, and get off the usual tourist destinations and get behind the curtain and see what's really going on and learn from the local people.
Wonderful. Also, they're going to be going to some of these countries that I'm going to name now. If you were to advise them to build something, or if you were one of the students and you had to build something in each of these cities and countries, what business would you pick? So what would you build in Dubai?
Dubai, probably something around luxury travel.
Got it. What would you build in Brazil?
Sustainability, AI-driven sustainability. Projects that actually look at having a positive impact on Brazil as it moves forward as it grows its economy.
All right. What would you build in Ghana?
Ghana fintech, much more fintech apps that are much more inclusive around a broader society in Ghana.
What would you build in Singapore?
Singapore, supply chain and logistics. So blockchain, using blockchain and AI in supply chain and logistics.
Excellent. And last, India.
Healthcare and biotech, particularly in regional communities.
All right. So we've seen in the last 3 years, there have been like annual trends that, everyone's been talking about. 2022 was all about fintech. 23, people will talk about Web 3.0. And then 2024 was all about AI as it's evolving. What do you think is the next big talk going to be next year, 2025, 2026, and 2027? What are people going to be talking about?
I think one of the things that we're seeing a profound shift in, particularly in the world of financial services, has been this move from ESG to impact investing. So ESG largely, we believe, has actually run its course. There's been a lot of greenwashing out there where organizations have not done the right thing despite their ESG credentials. Some have gone on a journey to get B Corp status and think that's the end of the journey, that we're a sustainable enterprise. But for a long time, the world of impact has been out there, but it's been neglected, largely because there was a belief for a long period of time that if you invested for impact, the financial returns would be lower. But now we've got the data that actually proves that if you invest with impact, the returns are at or better than market, but you're also making a positive contribution to society at large. So we believe that with the development of more technology in the green space, there's going to be a world of opportunities develop in impact.
Right, wonderful. Last three questions. First, name an innovation that you think has disrupted the business world.
Clearly, cloud computing. Cloud has completely disrupted the business world.
One innovation that has transformed the business world?
This is a personal one for me, the internet. And the reason why is when I started my PhD, I didn't have the internet. And when I finished it, I did have the internet. So I wish I had access to the net at the beginning of my journey. Yeah.
Wonderful answer. And one innovation that you think is a game changer, but particularly for entrepreneurs?
I really have to think about that one, particularly for entrepreneurs. I think if you look at a lot of the trends and the data that's coming out at the moment, we're running away with discussion of generative AI. We're talking about new business models and new tools and so on. But I think the work that's coming out of Cambridge, for example, around human-centered AI is really interesting. I think now we're starting to see the world of possibilities open up where entrepreneurs look at tech, but at the same time they're mindful around the human impact of that tech. I think that's going to be quite interesting.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Andrew. This was a wonderful chat. We all learned something from you. And thank you so much for finding this time and interacting with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.